Okay, let's talk about something that, for decades, has felt pretty black and white, our final choices. It's always been burial or cremation, right? Well, that's changing, and it's changing fast. What used to sound like a radical sci fi idea is now a very real option: human composting. Today, we're going to break down exactly what it is, how it works, and why it's suddenly becoming a mainstream choice.
So let's just cut right to it with this question. If you died tomorrow, could you legally become soil? Right now, for most people, the answer is probably no. But the fact that we can even ask this question, that it's a real possibility, shows you just how quickly this concept has gone from a fringe idea to a legitimate third option. The official, more scientific term for human composting is natural organic reduction, or NOR. And what's really interesting here is where the idea actually comes from. See, this isn't some brand new futuristic invention. The whole process was adapted from agriculture, where farmers have been safely composting livestock for decades. It's all about harnessing a completely natural process in a controlled and, of course, respectful way.
So, how did we even get here? How does an idea like this move from the farm to the funeral home? Well, it was pioneered by people like architect Katrina Spade, who asked a really simple question. If we can safely compost animals, why not humans? Let's take a look at how that question became a legal reality. And this just shows you the momentum perfectly. It all kicked off with Washington State back in 2019. But just look at the list since then. Oregon, Colorado, California, New York, Nevada. The map is filling in so quickly across the country. It's pretty clear this is an idea that is really resonating with a lot of people.
But how does this actually happen? What is the real science of returning a body to the earth? It's a very careful, step-by-step process, so let's break it all down. The process itself is actually pretty elegant and straightforward. First, the body is placed inside a vessel, resting on a bed of natural stuff like wood chips, straw, and alfalfa. Then, the real magic happens. Microbes that are already present get to work, and they generate incredible heat. We're talking up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That heat rapidly breaks down all the organic material over about 1 to 2 months. Afterwards, any medical hardware is removed, the remaining bones are reduced, and the soil is just allowed to cure and cool before it's ready. And the final result of all this? You get about 1 cubic yard of rich, healthy soil. Now, to put that into perspective, that's enough to fill the entire bed of a pickup truck. It is a tangible, substantial transformation from a person into a life-giving material. So why even invent this process in the first place? Well, NOR didn't just appear out of nowhere. It's a direct response to some of the serious environmental and personal drawbacks of our current default options. Let's just look at the data. On the left, we've got cremation, which is now the #1 choice in the US. Each one pumps out about 540 pounds of CO2. Add that up, and you're looking at nearly 1 billion pounds a year in the US alone. Then on the right, you have traditional burial, which often uses formaldehyde, a known carcinogen, and seals the body in non-biodegradable caskets and vaults, taking up land forever. So the bottom line is, our traditions have a pretty big environmental footprint. And people are really starting to notice. The demand for greener choices is just growing and growing. According to the National Funeral Directors Association, over 61% of people are now interested in green funeral options. This isn't some niche movement anymore. It's a huge signal that people are actively looking for better alternatives. Of course, with any new process, especially one this personal, there are always going to be some really important questions. Is it safe? And what does it actually feel like for the families who are going through it? Let's tackle those head on. The biggest concern, understandably, is often about pathogens. But as this quote explains, the safety rules for this aren't new at all. They're borrowed directly from agricultural composting. Those super high temperatures inside the vessel, well over 130 degrees, are proven to kill viruses and harmful bacteria. Now, there are certain very rare diseases that are excluded just to be extra cautious, but the process is considered incredibly biosecure. But, beyond all the science, what is the human experience? Well, families are reporting this surprisingly deep, tangible connection. They're creating brand new rituals like tucking flowers and handwritten notes into the vessel. And one story that really stands out is of a family who buckled their own mother's soil into the passenger seat for the ride home. It's just a completely different kind of journey, one that allows for new and deeply personal ways to say goodbye. Now, it's really important to remember that human composting doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's part of a growing menu of modern, environmentally focused farewells. So let's see how it stacks up against some of the other leading options. Here's a quick side-by-side look. You've got human composting, which we've talked about. Then there's something called aquamation, which uses water and alkaline chemicals instead of flame, and that dramatically reduces the carbon footprint. And of course, there's green burial, which is a simple return to the earth without any embalming fluids or vaults. Each one has a different process, a different environmental profile. The key takeaway is that now, finally, there are real choices that align with different values, whether you care most about land, ritual, or your carbon footprint.
So, when you put all of this together, what you're really looking at is a fundamental shift in how we think about our final act. It's about totally reframing what our legacy can be. I absolutely love this phrase from the source material, soil-forward death care. It just perfectly captures the whole philosophy, doesn't it? It's not just about getting rid of a body. It's about intentionally routing ourselves back into the ecological cycles of the planet, making our end part of a new beginning. And that brings us to our final question. With these new options really on the table, we can now ask ourselves something that past generations couldn't in quite the same way. Could your final act, the very last decision you make, actually be a positive one for the environment, a final piece of your legacy written in the soil itself?